Selling consultancy services isn't easy. And if you're struggling to get clients as a consultant, you're probably missing out on sales in two ways. But there's a fairly straightforward fix that I've discovered and used in my consultancy practice to win more clients and better clients that stuck with me for the long term. Now, for most of us selling our consultancy services, selling is not our main game. And we tend to be consultants who are really good at what we do, and we get great results for clients. But because we're often so involved in delivering our services and supporting our team, we often don't have the skills and the confidence to win more clients through our sales process. Now, what I'm going to tell you about in this video is how I turned around my sales results from a miserable 1 out of 13, which you can't get much worse than that, to eventually being able to sell 2 out of 3 client opportunities where I was able to get in front of clients. Now, I don't consider myself to be a great salesperson, and I was never very confident. In fact, I was the typical shy accountant who would prefer to sit in front of the computer screen doing the work than have a conversation with a potential client. So I had to learn how to win clients. When I started my consultancy practice, I went in very raw, and as you can see from what I've just said, when I did get in front of potential clients, I really didn't do a very good job of selling them. So I eventually adapted, and for me, one of my mantras is there's got to be a better way. And so I am persistent, and I stuck to the process and I taught myself through learning from other people as well, but also developing my own skills and adapting an approach that became very effective. And I want to talk to you about that approach today, because I've found that most consultants really don't have an effective sales methodology. And in a way, we've been spoiled by winning most of our work from referrals, if that's the case. And I think for many consultants, getting referrals is really the fallback in winning our clients. So when you're at the point where you know that you can't just rely on another referral coming in and you want more clients, and the thought of telling your significant other that you're going to be taking time out to go to another networking meeting is a bridge too far, you need to have a methodology, first of all, to have more client sales opportunities coming in, but also then making the most of those opportunities when you get them. Before I move on, if getting more appointments is a concern for you, then we've got a complete free training video series that is available to you. Just look for the link in the description below this video and get access to that. Also, if you're enjoying this video so far and you feel like you are, like me, not a full-time salesperson, then put a comment in the comments below, put sales as an indicator that I'm speaking to the right people, and letting me know that you would like more of this sort of content. Now, what I found is that it takes a totally different approach in the sales process to win consulting clients than what most consultants are doing at the moment. And I've run many training sessions for consultants in this area. And what I find is that as much as we don't want to come across as the sleazy used car salesperson type, and we typically don't get to that level. But as much as we want to avoid putting pressure on our potential clients in that sales process, we inevitably make the mistakes of putting pressure on and coming across as being salesy, even though we don't want to. And it's, in my opinion, we pick up bad habits because we've only ever really seen sales being done in that way. So as much as we don't want to be a salesperson like that, we inevitably slip into sales mode when we have a client opportunity. Now, one of the reasons I think that as consultants we tend to slip into that sales mode is that being consultants, we know that we solve problems. And when we hear our client presenting a problem to us and we know how to fix that problem, we pretty quickly jump to the opportunity to tell them how we can solve that problem for them. So we slip into sales mode just by being good at what we do and having the confidence to say, I understand your problem, I know how to fix it, here's how. But when we do that, as much as we don't want pressure to be in our sales process, that immediate jumping to the solution mode puts a subtle pressure that maybe we're not even aware of, but it creates resistance in our clients, and it tends to make them back off. And we end up having to be persuading our clients to use our services instead of drawing them to us. And I was guilty of that as much as anybody. And that was part of the reason why I got rejected from so many of my initial sales opportunities without the sale, and been walking away thinking I really knew that the client should have chosen to use my services, but for some reason they've put up the walls and they've maybe asked me to write a proposal, and that never goes anywhere, or they've just said no, this doesn't seem like that's for us. So as I said, I learned from others and also adapted my own methodology, and I came up with a methodology that changed the dynamics. And what this methodology will do for you if you adopt it is it will change the dynamics of your sales meetings with your clients from coming across like that salesperson, being in sales mode. It will change that so that instead of being a salesperson, you're coming across more like a doctor. Now, when you see a doctor in operation, you don't ever feel like the doctor is selling to you, but how often do you walk away from a doctor's appointment where they've recommended the procedure to take or the remedy you need to take? How often do you walk away from that situation saying, well, let me think about it, or, well, I need to get a number of other quotes about this, or I need to get some other opinions about how to solve this problem? No, more often than not, when you're visiting a doctor and they are telling you what they think you should do, and there's a price attached to that, and there's a cost in time and money, more often than not, you take that doctor's advice and you go ahead and move forward with that doctor's recommendations. Now, my approach is very similar to the doctor. So you don't want to be in sales mode. You want to be in professional advisor mode. And a lot of that comes about as having authority already in the process. So what I want you to learn to do is to sell with power, not pressure. Now, we want to eliminate pressure from the conversation with our potential clients totally. So we want to be able to sell without selling, but we want to sell with power. Now, power stands for an acronym, which the P starts for position yourself as the authority. O is own the agenda. W is win their trust. E is educate, and R is recommend. Now, when you can sell with power, you have that stance and demeanor as the professional advisor. You come across more like the doctor than a salesperson. One way that you can make that shift from being the salesperson to being like the doctor is to adopt the doctor's methodology, or their approach is about diagnosis rather than about persuasion. And often we'll jump in, as I said earlier, we jump into the solution far too quickly. As soon as we hear what the problem is, we know how to fix it, and we jump into sales mode. I want to ask you to back off. And one of the first things you can do in your next sales meeting is stay away from the solution until you have a proper diagnosis. So go into the meeting prepared with a list of diagnostic type questions so that you can drill down deeper into the problem. When you hear the problem, have a series of questions that you can follow up with so that you can get a deeper understanding of the problem. You want to know what evidence the client has that the problem exists, how extensive the problem is, how it impacts them in their day-to-day situation, and what is the impact ultimately if they don't solve this problem. So when you can diagnose like that, instead of feeling that you're selling them, your client will have the feeling that you actually want to understand and you want to get to know their situation so that you can come around to the solution that is best for them. So instead of feeling sold to, they feel cared for. And I think that's an amazing transition. If you can achieve that in your sales calls, you will win far more sales. So I'm going to recommend that you learn more about how to sell with power. So in this next video here, I'm going to go deeper into the power sales process and help you understand how you can adapt this process to win more sales and win more clients.